Am I on and clicking?
All right.
So first of all, you guys know my name, but here is a little bit of the rest of the story before I kick it into high gear. So I have two wild and woolly kids that I love dearly. They're 10 and 12. And we have been homeschooling pretty much since the beginning. They were in preschool for a little bit. And my husband and I were homeschooled ourselves. Sorry, let me make sure there we go. So we brought into our homeschooling journey all of that experience and baggage and fun things that come with being second generation homeschoolers. So that is me. And now let's kick it into high gear. All right. So I like to start off with a story because every good talk should start off with a little story, right? A little illustration. I used to love as a child when my pastor would get a really good one going. So I want you guys to join me in this thought process. Before I homeschooled and stayed at home with my kids, I was a store manager for a Pier 1. I know, probably some sad tears for Pier 1 going out of business. As a manager, though, I would arrive first thing in the morning and I would have a list of duties. I would need to take the deposit in. I would need to check the safe and make sure there wasn't anything from yesterday. If there was truck or freight to be processed, I would have the employees do that. Perhaps we'd be changing a display like for a new season. And so I had my list of things to do. So I want you to picture with me, I arrive as a manager and I grab this list and I'm married to it. It is attached to me at the hip. We are so focused on this schedule. We do nothing else. Customers can come in the store, they can leave the store, maybe the phone will ring off the hook, but we're tied to this list. I force the employees past the point of exhaustion, no breaks for lunch, because we are tied to this list. It is my ruler for the day. You can imagine the attitude of the next manager coming on shift, what their reaction might be to my choices for that day. You can also imagine how my employees might feel. The second option, I come in that morning, glance at the list, ho hum, I'll do my own thing. I've got this. I don't need a list tying me down. We go throughout our day, long, leisurely phone conversations. The employees and I, we have great rapport and we laugh and we talk and we share jokes and we take an extra long lunch break. All the customers are greeted, we fellowship. I can tell you what those customers are doing later in the day and what they're doing the next day because we've had so many long conversations. But the registers, they're not filled with very much money, and that deposit is still sitting in the safe, and none of the displays got changed. We can look at either type of manager and we can laugh and say, that's absolutely ridiculous to run a store in either way. So with that story in mind, my thought today is balance when we are looking at schedules. And in the interest of balance, I want to start off with talking more about the heart of a schedule versus actually sitting here and going, here guys, easy peasy schedule, 1, 2, 3. Because I think a lot of thought has to go in behind the scenes before you even put your pen or your fingers to your computer. So first of all, we're going to ask the question, why? Why is a schedule important anywhere, but especially here in homeschooling? So first of all, it creates ease of mind long term. So piggybacking on what Brenda had to say, you are going to put the work in up front to create. It is going to take time to sit down and sort through all of those things and put them on paper. But in the same way, we need to take that time to train our children, for example, to clean up their dinner dishes or lunch dishes. In the long run, that creates ease of mind for us and for them. And think about it this way. We're a pretty good example to our kids when we wrestle through the difficult task of a schedule. Inside our minds, we can respond to little Jimmy's sadness about the complexity of his math problems with understanding because we know what it takes to put through a homeschool schedule. It also creates a flow and a rhythm to your day. Things are going to come up and life is messy. It is not perfection. Believe me, I love my wild and woolly kids, but none of us in our family are perfect. but everything can glide along in a measure of smoothness to the jazz and messy perfection of your day with a schedule. The other thing is, early on, as we're building our schedule and routine in our home to our school day, that flow, we help guide our kids. And I can speak from experience, as they age, they are going to adapt and help keep that rhythm and flow to your schedule because it's so much a part of them. And it's very helpful as they age. I could never get away without doing morning meeting with my kids or reading certain books because they would question, but mom, we always. Another benefit behind a schedule is the freedom for long-term plans. Once I've plugged all of my daily activities in and I have my list of what we're expecting for that day, I can look ahead and plan a field trip or participate in a field trip and know, yes, Wednesdays are always a good day to plan something. That's always a great time to have our doctor's appointments. After 1 p.m., we're free. But maybe Thursdays, not so much. Thursdays are not good. And because I have the flow of what we're learning written out, I can even look ahead and say yes or no to certain field trips based on what we're learning. Or I could plan them, whichever works. This one, as I was thinking about schedules, it took me aback a little bit. I can honestly say I was surprised. Kids are calmer when they know what to expect. So here's the surprise for me. I asked my children whether or not they liked schedules just over the years. Like, what have you thought of our different schedules that we've used? Do you like schedules? Do you like having everything written out? Both of them answered with a resounding yes, like a fist bump in the air, yes. So I asked them why, and they said they loved that it was predictable and they didn't have to worry about what was coming next or how the day was going to flow. And I realized they could see up front if a favorite book was going to be read that day, because yes, in history and science, my kids have books they love and books they hate. So it allowed their excitement to build for, yes, today is 50 famous stories retold, or it's Shakespeare Day. So, or in my daughter's case, a lot of times she could process her disappointment. It's kind of like when it's Sunday and you realize Chick-fil-A is closed. You got to process that disappointment. So now I want to talk about the human side of schedules. That's a funny way to say it, but they are living. So a schedule, first of all, it's personal to your family. Your schedule is not my schedule. And wouldn't it be terrible if we all tried to share the same method, the same set of things that we were trying to schedule? Charlotte said that children are born persons. And here's where this comes to life for us moms. Your schedule is yours, and it is unique, just like you are. And here, if you guys take away anything from what I have to say today, this would be it, okay? When creating, do not overburden yourself with too many, hey, what are they doing? We live in a generation where we are so blessed with many homeschool influencers on Instagram, in Facebook, on YouTube. And that is a huge blessing. As a child, my mom did not have that resource. She had like the once a month, ocean fair in Oregon that she could go to. But it can also be a curse because we can pay more attention to what Susie Homemaker is doing on YouTube than what is actually going to be good for our family. And here is the final part of that thought. We need to be seeking the Lord's input. The question we need to be asking is, what would you have us learn, Lord? That should be our refrain. And he wants to put his divine handprint on our schedule. When I was getting married, I had a shower, and the sweet little old lady said, God cares about everything, even the cake in the oven. And that's true. He cares about your little old schedule, and he cares about my little old schedule, and he wants his divine influence on it. So that's really where we need to be poking our eyes on him. Don't overthink your schedule. Charlotte told her teachers in training that the children need your utmost freshness of mind and energy. So do not sit up late preparing lessons. What you seem to gain in preparation, you lose by tiredness the next day. So in other words, don't give this more attention than it needs. Spend just enough time and energy to do it well, and then move into your next steps. Take a deep breath there, okay? Ready? It is the tool, not the master, okay? I teach children most of the time. I am a Sunday school teacher, I am a VBS teacher, and I'm a piano teacher. So I'm used to audience participation. I want you guys to say it with me, okay? You ready? I'm gonna say it, then you're gonna repeat after me. I will not be mastered by my schedule because it does not rule over me. I can see you guys, you're not doing it. Guilty. No, I'm just teasing. So Charlotte even gave schedule outlines to her PE and U school teachers only as a framework to develop the work in the classroom. So recently, I had the experience of lamenting to a friend about book choices for my daughter. I felt completely overwhelmed by the amount that were being suggested. We use Ambleside Online as our spine. And I didn't necessarily want to use all of those book choices. So cue the wringing of hands and the fretting. It was very freeing for me for her to look me straight in the face and say, you don't have to use those. That schedule is not my master. That list is not my master. And ultimately, the same choice lies with each one of you ladies. My schedule is age appropriate, and it grows with my children. Over the years, my schedule has changed. Just like a river would widen as it flows, so has my children's ability to sit and take in information. In the early years, we sat in a little circle on the ground and we did clapping songs and watched cute little phonics videos. Well, as the kids have aged, we do a bit more couch lounging than we previously had, but they also are much more interested in wrestling through who was the cruelest dictator and why. I also don't have to schedule bathroom breaks or think about that as much. So the schedule, as my tool, has grown with my family and I. The last thing to think about in this human side of schedules, it is flexible. Test it and then create again. Once you get everything set up in your schedule, you are not tied to it. Try it for a few days or even a week. If it's not fitting your family's need, add or remove and try again. Do not waste time feeling like you failed or you can't do it. You just need to change something in it. In the first part of September, we always spend time beta testing. My son loves the words beta testing because of video games. So we test it, we see what works, what doesn't work, and then I go back and I take stuff out. There's a quote floating around the homeschool community, and it's cut back until you find peace. So I cannot say enough that in the years where I looked down at my list and it was growing broader and broader and my state of overwhelm was enlarging, cutting back to where it was doable meant we accomplished so much more. And just the same way that Brenda said, in those habits, the mom's setting the tone, I'm setting the tone with what I put in my schedule, okay? So all of that is the human side, the why side. Let's go ahead and talk technical. This is a bit harder for me to communicate over Zoom. I did have some materials to put up and show, and I'm going to do the best I can to walk through Zoom and be able to share things, but I just apologize in advance for this.
Do you want me to pull up the pictures and then have them live and then put the share screen?
Yes, I will do that. I just don't quite see it. I had it set to where I could, but now it's gone. So, well, I will
do it maybe.
I will not take time like to mess with that. So I'll just verbalize everything, which is what I do best. So first of all, choose your format. Are you an analog or digital person? You guys just learned I'm a very analog person, which is ironic because my husband is an IT guy and his wife lives in the 1800s. Do you want to manage your schedule online or on your phone? Do you want pen and paper? Do you want to do it on the computer and print it off? If you guys go into the event, I have shared a resource sheet with some of the top online planners that you can walk through. Some you can purchase, some are for free. I've also included my top links for where to get like pen and paper schedules to fill out. And I'll also be including a link of fabulous YouTube videos that will walk you through step by step some of the different types of schedules we're going to talk about. Okay, so first step, you're going to think about your overall learning goal for the year. Write that down for each student. That's where you're going to start. For example, mine this year, coming into our school year, I want my son's handwriting to improve, and I would like to see my daughter grow in her math skills. So everything I do has those laser focused goals in mind, okay? Next, you're gonna write all of your subjects down. Pull out those books, look at what you have to go through. What riches do you want to include? Do you want to study Shakespeare? Do you want to make sure you include an art rotation? You need to have all of that out and ready. And it might look kind of messy. It might be spread all over the dining table or the coffee shop, but you're going to want to go through that. I don't have the ability right now with the screen set up the way it is to share the photo, but last year I had a printout for each child, and I had all of the material that we were going to work through written out ahead of time, and then I plugged that into my schedule. So that would be how I've chosen to do that. Okay, so as you've taken, you now need to decide what kind of schedule you want to have, all right? So there are different types of schedule. This has been amazing to me as I've watched the homeschool community grow in the last 10 years, because when I started, things were pretty simple and there's been a lot added, and I love all of the new additions. So first of all, loop scheduling, and it's pretty much just what it sounds like. You have, let's say you have your history. I'm gonna hold up here, and we have these 3 books, okay? It can feel really overwhelming to try to get through those books. So what you do is you write them down on a piece of paper, even, very simple. And every time you read a book, you move a Post-it note down. I read through this one. Oop, but you know what? Little Johnny, you got sick, so we had to stop here. So there sits your Post-it note, and when you come back to do your history again, you're ready to know, oh, I left off with the story of the Greeks. Now I need to go on from there. And it's a really super simple way to make sure you never miss a step. You can also loop things like language arts. I know these are backwards and you guys probably can't see the titles, but like here's an example: poetry, Charles Lamb Shakespeare, and 8 Cousins. Let's say that was your literature loop, but mine are really small. I don't want to hold up like 10 books or something. And you just simply move that Post-it note through the week, and so you never lose your place and you're never behind, okay? So that is loop scheduling. The next one is the most common kind that you're going to see. That's that traditional, block scheduling that we know and love from maybe college and high school days ourselves, where you have blocks of time, blocks of subjects, and you move through those. So for our family personally, I am a recovering ADD diagnosed in elementary school. So you would not catch me near a block schedule with actual amounts of time. For example, like I would never say, start morning meeting at 8:35 on the dot. That would not fit my personality. So you can choose to write down times if you want. I personally feel they can be a little discouraging, because if you're not on time, what does that automatically do to you as the mom? Oh, we're behind. No. And it just starts your day on a discouraging note. Instead, we've chosen to create a flow to our day, and we have those boxes, and we simply move from one box to another using a timer. So morning meeting is around 30 minutes, then we quit. My kids will do math for 20 minutes, then they quit. And we simply move through using a timer instead of actual assigned, 10:35 a.m. 2 more kinds to think about. Year-round, so you can schedule year-round. In Washington, where I am, although I feel like I'm both sides, I'm right on the border, you have about 180 days of school to do. And when you break that down over 12 months, it's only 15 days a month of school to meet those requirements. So you would just break those over an entire year instead of the smaller period of the school year. And also there are schedules 4 days a week. We've chosen to school 4 days a week. We take Tuesdays off because I teach piano. And my kids actually really enjoy the break. I was concerned at first it might lead to trouble getting back up on the horse, so to speak, on Wednesdays. but they actually love the break after Monday and are excited to get back on Wednesday. So those are some different types of schedules to think about. And again, in the actual event, I will share some examples, because I feel like it's one thing for me to even just quickly, share something on here. I don't know about you guys, but I'm kinesthetic. I need to hold something in my hands and physically mess around with it in order to process the information. So I will have those available on the event for you to look at. So now we've discussed those different types of schedules. You need to actually start plugging it in, okay? Here is the most groundbreaking thing that I have learned from Charlotte Mason, okay? You guys ready for this? Layer your work so that different parts of the brain are engaged, okay? I would never, ever set up math and then Latin and then spelling for my children back to back, because that would be so taxing on those certain areas of the brain. It would become very overwhelmed. You want to modulate with varying subjects. So for example, math is followed by a literature selection, and then often I give my kids a little break to run outside, okay? Charlotte herself does this in her own, did this in her own personal schedule. She would set limits for how long she would work, and then she would do something different. As I was reading a little bit more about her personal schedule, she would have a classic a literature book going. She would have a history book going, and then she might have some sort of Christian type living book going. And she would take breaks throughout the day to make sure that she read these different types of books and her nature walk. So I feel like she was ahead of her time and extremely wise in how our brains are organized. So make sure when you're putting things into the schedule, when you're looking at your math and your language arts and your literature and all of the different things that you're putting together, layer them in such a way that you're using different parts of the child's brain, okay? And then don't overload you or the child. You're gonna choose very wisely what you put into your schedule. We, as I've said, we use Ambleside Online. And after praying and looking at the year 7 schedule, I am just very confident in the fact that there is no way that my daughter could read all of the wonderful assortment of science books. And I know some might argue, oh, we just don't know what children are capable of. But in this case, I'm going to trust that I do know what my child is capable of, and that the Lord is telling me what to do. And I'm going to trust that. So I'm trying to be as honest as I can about what we can accomplish in the day. And like I said earlier, cut back the schooling till you find peace. Because just in the same way that I'm going to reference Brenda again, if we take those little bits of habits, as opposed to looking at doing 20 habits, and we accomplish something really well, that is so much better in the long run. If my child comes through the year attached to one really good quality history book and can process it and narrate it, that's so much better than feeling exhausted by 5 or 6 selections. So, and again, I am going to share online. This is the first year we're changing our format a little bit. We're using more of a checklist system. I'm going to be deferring more to my daughter now that she's older and having her kind of say when she's going to do things, versus in the past I said, okay, we're always going to do geography on Mondays and Thursdays. So this is a bit of a new year for us. We get to put a lot of that beta testing into practice. So again, I apologize, guys. I'm on my cell phone, so I don't have that little area to share like I did before when I looked through Zoom. So I can't share the form, but I just want to close with these things, okay? So I want you to ask yourself 3 questions, okay? Why am I scheduling? What are my goals? And then I want you just to sit down and start and take a look at the resources that I've listed on the event page. Go through and watch those tutorials. And they actually have these absolutely beautiful and very user-friendly sheets on wonder and wildness. It's my favorite place to get resources. And they actually have these wonderful slots that you can just go through and plug everything in throughout the week. So again, to kind of close, schedules are very difficult to talk to about digitally, because part of it is, if we were in that in-person workshop, you could come up to me, we could be looking at papers that are spread out. I could show you in person how I've implemented things. But the one thing I want to say, like all of the things that I've been sharing, I am a creative, right-brained person who easily is overwhelmed by too much structure, I guess. And I have actually found so much peace in the structure that I've applied. So I'm just encouraging you, don't feel overwhelmed. Don't think that you're not enough, because we have a bevy of tools, and just get started and just do it. So that's the end of my little rant. If anybody has any questions, feel free to yell out.
Thank you, Miss Melissa. Well, I know Brianna had commented that scheduling is what she was stressing about, and Miss Jessica quoted the "keep cutting back until there's peace in your home." Yes, yes, yes. So if you have any other little thoughts for Miss Brianna.
So I would need to ask, maybe specifically, saying that you have trouble scheduling, it's such a broad question for me. If you could be a bit more specific in terms of what, maybe putting it on paper, or in terms of what to plug into the schedule, because that is such a broad question for me. So maybe if we could clarify that a little bit.
You can also probably unmute yourself, but you can type too. If you guys have any other questions, you can unmute yourself, I think, or type away, and we will.
Did it unmute?
There you go.
Okay, I'm outside, sorry. I think I'm really stressing on what I need to be putting into the schedule for them. My son is going into 3rd grade, but he has so many delays in so many different areas that in certain things we're at a 2nd grade, and other things we're at like a kindergarten or 1st grade level. So I feel like I kind of have to pick and choose from a bunch of different things. And I've worked in special ed on and off for 10 years. So I'm trying to get away from the public school setting and all that kind of stuff. And really, I want to focus on where both of their delays really are. And I think I really want to just focus on those more than anything to try and catch them up to where they need to be.
Then I think that would be what I would plug into the schedule first, is whatever those delays are, put items in first, and then layer those with other things that maybe, I'm trying to think of how to say this, things for me, like listening to composers or reading a read aloud, they are just a little brightener. So I would definitely focus on the things that you want, those goals that you have for those needs that you want to meet, and then add your personal day brighteners in between those, would be how I would start to structure that. Just start with your basics, math and language arts, and move on from there if that's where you're focusing on helping them grow.
Okay, thank you.
If I can make a comment real quick, if it's okay with you guys. Like I said, my daughter has special needs as well. And what I have learned, we did year 2 last year, and it took about a year and a half just because of all the transitions and things we were going through. And this year we are doing year 3, and we're about halfway through term 2 on it. What I have learned is that as long as I can make sure, I use the weekly schedule and just cross off as we get things done. I just kind of go down the list. But what I focus on is making sure that we get our math and our language arts done as a daily requirement. And then depending on how she's feeling that day, determines how many other actual subjects that we work on for that day, so that she's not overwhelmed and overstimulated from it. And that is what I have found works the best. I do year round, so that way when we need time off, we can take as much time as needed, and there's no stress about it. Me as a parent, yes, I do feel like I'm massively behind, but I'm having to learn to refocus and realize that my reality and the actual expectations are different. And so I'm reworking things, and it's actually been a lot less stressful in our home because I have learned how to cut back and feel like, you know what, if we even got 2 things done that day, we did good. and she loves her math. We use Life at Fred for math because of the repetition, but also because she doesn't get overwhelmed with the amount of math that there is in there, and it does meet the standard of a full curriculum. And then to cover her language arts, I just use A Reason for Handwriting because it covers the phonics, the grammar, the copy work, the dictation, all of that right in that one subject right there. So she's not overwhelmed with trying to do a lot of things at one time. And that's what really seems to work for us.
Thanks, Heather. Yeah, I use the Ambleside Online weekly schedule. They have a printout for the week for the entire school year. And so I use that, and I use my Happy Planner, and I use the teacher planner, which is driving me nuts right now because it's supposed to be out anytime soon, and it starts in August, and they're not out yet. I checked. So I'm trying not to go too crazy. But I usually do. I get stressed out if I try to write down, this is what we're doing today, this is what we're doing, and we don't end up getting to it. And then I busting out everything and going nuts. I look at the week, and I also give my son freedom to choose. So like it's broken out into categories. So you have like history and natural history and stuff like that. And so I'd go, all right, Benjamin, here's our 3 books. And I actually have printed out a thing for him. So now he has a little bit of a visual and a responsibility, and he can see it. Here's what our books are this week. We're going to read one of them today, or half of a chapter, whatever it is. Which one do you want? So I give him a choice. And that helps a little bit. But sometimes I have to rearrange that because then he doesn't want to do any of his ones he likes. And then at the end of the week, it's all the stuff he doesn't want to do, which makes for a tough Friday. So I do try to play that a little bit. But then all I do is on my Happy Planner, I mark what we did do. And so I don't have the expectation of, oh my gosh, we didn't get everything we got done today. If we got 2 or 3 things done, we're living with my in-laws right now. Life is chaotic. We're in the middle of transition. I'm trying not to set myself up for failure like Melissa's talking about. And we get a few things done, and I mark it down, and we move on. And if it takes us a week and a half, 2 weeks to go through a week on Ambleside schedule, I'm okay with that. And that's the beauty of homeschooling and the beauty of the flexibility. And we too, year round, my husband, when I originally talked with him about it, he was like, no, when I was homeschooled, I had the summers off with all the other kids. It was the best thing. I don't want to do that. But because Charlotte Mason is a lifestyle and you're just reading good books and nature study, it's a much more natural way to school. And there's been weeks we haven't been able to school because of our transition. And when right now, if I have a day where we have nothing planned, we're getting school in, and I can check off the list in the week, and then I move on when I can. And so it's very easy to adapt. So that's kind of how we do it. And my family's home, so I'm going to try to move. So do you have any other questions for Melissa? I think there's a chat window that just popped up.
Yes, somebody asked, I couldn't read all of the question. Can someone see all of the question?
So hopefully this isn't a silly. Oh, go ahead.
Hopefully this isn't a silly question. I'm still new to all of this. Is there testing that needs to be given, recorded, and turned in somewhere? I know certain programs run that way.
Well, my friend who asked the question, if you live in Washington, you are required to test every year. You don't have to turn that test into anyone, but you just keep it and file it away. If you live in Idaho, you don't have to do anything as far as I know. And I don't know if you're living in another state. For my family personally, just like real quick sharing, we use the Ambleside exams, but they're purely for me to see where weak spots are in the kids, and then also for the kids to see and actually celebrate their strengths. It's more about getting to share what they've learned and not an actual test. And then we do test according to Washington law. But yes, and then Allison just said AO has tests. They're wonderful. The exams are just delightful. My kids love it. They actually get excited because it's all in the tone of how we've done it.
Going back to with Washington, you take like Flow is one of the ones that a lot of people use. You can take it, but in Washington it requires you to be tested, your kids to be tested, but you don't turn it in to anybody. You just file it and you keep it for your own record. So yeah, so it's just a matter of judging things or whatever. That's just to keep it legal, I suppose. So yeah. So, looks like we are probably ready for lunch break. Let's take a little bit of a break. Let's get back here at 1. We will leave this open